In this video, I'm going to discuss a conceptual overview of game development. This overview will give you a better understanding of how games are made. To do this, I'm going to use a construction analogy. That is, I'm going to relate building games to constructing a home. The first thing that you need to think about when you're building a home is who are you building it for? You'll build it very differently for a group of college students than, say, a small family with a second child on the way. The same concept applies to games. You need to know who you're making the game for. That is, who is your target audience? Beyond traditional demographics like age, gender, and culture, with games, one of the most significant differences between players is their play style. Are they core gamers or casual gamers? Core gamers play for the exhilaration of beating the game. They'll tolerate frustration to get to the next level of the game, while casual players typically play for the sheer enjoyment of playing. If the game becomes frustrating, they'll stop playing and put it down, or find another game. When building a house, the location is very important. What neighborhoods are hot, which have comparable properties, which have additional location features like they're in town, or they have a big backyard, or maybe they have a nice view. As they say in real estate, the three most important things is location, location, location. Our neighborhoods in game development are the game platforms. The traditional personal computer markets, Windows and Mac, the home console systems, Wii, Xbox, PlayStation. Of course, there's other consoles available. The various mobile platforms, of course, iOS and Android are the most popular today. And of course, you could view the web as a game platform as well. Each platform reaches a different audience and has certain advantages and disadvantages, which of course we'll discuss throughout the specialization. In terms of construction materials, homes are made up of brick, concrete, steel, and wood. It's very important for the builder to understand the physical and aesthetic properties of these materials. Games ultimately are made up of digital code, ones and zeros, that control literally millions of switches within the computing device. In the early days of game development, we sometimes worked at this very low level to get the most out of the primitive hardware. But today, we usually don't work with computers at this level. So let's talk about the construction materials of games, or game technology. Just like in construction, game technology is built from the ground up. We start with the earth. The earth in game technology is our hardware. It's the devices that we're building the game upon. Moving up, we've got the foundation. The foundation needs to be solid in construction. It can't be on a marshland, so sometimes we bring in extra fill dirt and that sort of thing to create a solid foundation. With game technology, our foundation is our operating system. The operating system is the interface between our game and the hardware. In construction, the next level is framing. So on top of the foundation, we frame up the home. Roughly we can construct the analogy that our frame in game technology is the middleware or the game engine. These are the common components that most games will use, like graphics rendering, physics, networking, input, and so on. We'll talk a little bit more about game engines as we move forward. So in construction, once we have the frame up, we move on to the finishing work. We put up the walls, we put in the floor, and ultimately we put in the carpet, paint it, and so forth. So with games, this is all of our game-specific code, the code that maps the rules of the game and have them play out in the computer. It also includes the graphics of the game, the sounds of the game, and so forth. However, when we think from a more game design perspective, we often conceptualize the game from the top down. So we start with the graphics, the sound, and the game-specific code. That is, we think about the target audience and what things will be attracted to them, and what mechanics will they enjoy playing. That ultimately leads to the design of the game, which of course can map to the game engine that we're using. Certain engines work better for certain types of games, for example. And then all of this will really help flesh out the technical details of the game. So we might pick the operating system and the hardware or the game platform based on the design of the game and the target audience. So games, like houses, usually employ many different roles or jobs to get them built. I created this table to kind of roughly make the analogy between the two. So in construction, we have the architect, which of course designs the home. These would be our game designers. We have the managers or the supervisors that run the team. These would be our game producers. We have all the tradespeople, the masons, the carpenters, the electricians, the plumbers, the people that actually build the home. These, of course, would be our game designers and our programmers. And then we have the interior designers, the painters, the landscapers, the people that make the house look great. These are our artists, our musicians, our sound designers, and so on. So the makeup of the team will vary largely based on the size of the project and the size of the game development team, just like in construction. I mean, if we're building a small house, we might have a small team. If we're building a large apartment complex, we're going to have a very large team to pull that off. So when we look at a small size project today, let's say a team of 1 to 5 people, the typical roles that are used in game development is that of the game designer, the programmer, and the artist. Of course, the designer conceptualizes, designs the rules of the game, communicates those rules to the rest of the team. The programmer is the one who implements those game mechanics and code, and of course the artist is the one that creates the visuals and maybe the audio portions of the game. With this small team size, you may have one person that assumes multiple of these roles. And of course, because it's so small, you have less need for management, and people may ultimately wear multiple hats on this small project. Moving up to a medium team size project, you start to add additional people to manage the team. So this is where the producers come in. They're managing the schedules, they're managing the budget, helping with communication channels, and various other odd jobs that come along in larger scale game development. Moving up to a large team size, 25 or more, if you look at modern AAA game development, often team sizes can range from 25 to hundreds of people working on a game title across multiple years. So we need even more people to manage the team, more levels within that producer category. We also start to get more specialized or in-between roles that bridge the disciplines. So, for example, level designers maybe bridge between design and art. Technical artists that bridge between art and programming. And scripters, people that know a lot about design but can also do some code to make the levels, make the missions that would be in this larger scale game. And then let's talk a little bit about the cost of production. So just like the example I made before, building a small house or maybe a shack would be very inexpensive to make versus making a huge apartment complex would be very, very expensive. The same holds true for games. Commercial game titles are expensive often to make. This just shows maybe an average range of based on different game platforms. So, a web or mobile game typically is a little bit less expensive because maybe there's a less of an expectation or it's a smaller scale game title. Desktop or personal computing games may be a little bit more expensive. And then up to AAA game development, most AAA titles today are very much like Hollywood blockbuster movies, ranging into the tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to build. So what's next? Now that we have a conceptual understanding of game development, we're ready to dive into some of the more technical details of game development, starting with an introduction to the Unity 3D game engine in the next video.